Chris Spirou is both a leader in the Greek and Greek-American community. Born in Greece, he immigrated to the United States at the young age of 13. After many political successes in America, Spirou returned to his homeland and co-founded the Hellenic American University in Athens, and also serves as the CEO and president of the Hellenic American Union.
My mother was born in Manchester, New Hampshire. My grandparents came here on both sides in 1910. My mother was born in 1917. Went back to the village with her mother and her siblings. Wasn't able to come back. My grandfather died in Detroit, Michigan. The other grandfather left the Spirous here. That's the uncle that I slept at Kew Gardens here. They remained in the United States, and then after the war, Second World War, and the Civil War in Greece, we immigrated, the whole family, and we've been in Manchester, New Hampshire. My mother came in 1954 with my brother. My father came in 55, and I came in 56. The rest of the kids came in 1960, and we've all been there in New Hampshire, involved in the community, involved in sports, involved in politics, involved in a lot of things. I can tell you about my background very briefly. I came from a small village called Porti in the prefecture of Karditsa in Thessalia at the age of 13. Slept my first night in the United States in Kew Gardens up the street from here. Spent a couple of days here and then headed up to find my parents. I came all alone at the age of 13, by the way, to New Hampshire. Then I worked in the shoe factories. I was a good shoe shine boy, very good. And then went to school, got elected to the New Hampshire legislature, became the leader of the Democrats in the House, the minority party leader, opposition as they call it in Greece. In 1984, I was the Democratic nominee for governor of the state of New Hampshire. Then I became the Democratic Party chairman. During the Clinton presidency, I was president of his electors, very good friends of the Clintons. Now the chairman of the draft Hillary for president in 2016. For the last 8 years, president of Hellenic American University, an American university with a campus in Manchester, New Hampshire, and in Athens, Greece. And for the last 20 years, president of Hellenic American Union in Athens, Greece, an educational and cultural center. That's a brief synopsis of my activities in the last 58 years in this country. I have a family of a wife, 2 daughters, 2 grandchildren. The whole calamity, as Zorba would say. You know, they asked me if I was scared on the boat coming over. And I told them that fear is realized when you know it. I didn't know fear, so I had no fear on the boat because I've never been on a boat before and I never saw an ocean. So I didn't know what the hell was under there. So I had no fear. The same thing in politics. The fear was when we went to school and they were not accepted into the school with the other kids, and there was a tough time for that period for immigrants because other immigrants who came before us were against us. But you have to navigate through that and be tough, and we were tough. The shoe factories that we worked in were difficult. I ran for a union steward, I remember, at the age of 17, and I called for a strike. I won the position and called for a strike at the age of 17 and a half. But it was tough. It was not easy. And then went to school, got married. I was married when I went to school, got myself a master's degree, and then I got elected to a position of citizen participation, and then 80% of the delegates in New York were black Puerto Rican, and they elected me president of 62 cities. And then I decided it was tough times because they wanted to take us to go to war in Vietnam. They wanted us to be always in the shoe factories. So we rebelled, and I was part of the rebellion. And I ran for the legislature. Nobody expected me to win. 4 years later, I became the leader of the Democrats in the House. And the rest is a history of progressive movement up the ladder. And then once I left the elected political position in 1994, I decided to go into education and became the president of a multinational center in Athens, Greece, that teaches linguistics. I always thought that the English language is going to be a key. As I was watching the technology progress, that the English as a second language would be a key thing for anyone, for any country in the future, and I was right. Greek as a second language to those that came to Greece at those times was key, and so we're now experts in Greek as a second language and English as a second language. And then we reached a certain level and created Hellenic American University, named it Hellenic American University, brought it an American university to Greece. So we stopped the brain drain from there so they can get American education, relevant American education, and for them to stay there. And I'm glad to tell you that last year one of our graduates from Hellenic American University is the European head of Microsoft. And so we have now an American university functioning in Athens, Greece. I was president up until last year, and Hellenic American Union is now going to work, hopefully, with the HEPA and other people here in the United States to do a major program that's going to be called Our Roots, to give kids an opportunity to find out where they came from, because I firmly believe that we, the Greek American community, are not to allow ourselves to find out where we came from like the African Americans had to with Kunda Kinde. I don't need to be the Kunda Kinde 50 years from now and somebody opens up the boxes and finds my political career and says, who was this guy? Okay, and then go back and we have a Kunda Kinde series from Porti Karditsas. Well, let's do it now. Let's have our kids and our grandchildren check their background to see how they ended up in South Africa, how they ended up in Manchester, New Hampshire, how they ended up where, and who the heck they are. Because if you don't know who you are, you ain't worth being. We have several American universities that we do exchanges. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to bring American students to Greece to see where thought began. It's called Skepsi. Remember, IBM, their first logo was Skepsu. And so one of the things that I think is needed is for us to start thinking. We went through a generation of thoughtlessness. And so I believe that the university is going to give both sides the opportunity to be in Athens, to be part of the educational air. You know, everybody that wanted to come to Athens in ancient times came to see the thinkers, came to see, they didn't came to get olive oil, they came to see those who were teaching philosophy, who were teaching science, who were teaching medicine, who were teaching everything else, because the air, the environment is an environment for thinkers. That's why I wanted to have a global university where the first global university existed in Athens, Greece, and God has given us the opportunity, and the legislature in New Hampshire authorized the existence of an American university outside of the United States with full accreditation of the New England Accreditation Commission to function and to teach American education, and that's what we're doing. I think the Greek-American issue that is most important is our identity. I think our children and our grandchildren have utilized the great opportunities that exist here to the fullest. I think we're the #1 minority group in the United States in terms of education. We haven't done bad economically. I think those two things combined are worthless unless we know who we are. You just can be a nothing You know, you ought to know who you are, and you ought to know how you ended up being who you are, how you ended up here. Somebody, you know, whose father worked 18 hours in a pizza place, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, ought to know where that person came from, because that person's father, my grandfather, for example, came here to New York in 1910, brought 3 kids, left my grandmother with 4 children and my father in her belly. Came here, left the 3 children here, went back to fight to liberate the rest of Greece from Turkey, never to see his 3 children again. And when my father came here, his brother picked him up as he picked me up from the docks in New York, but talked to his brother in North Carolina that he never saw, never met. He died, he never saw him. I have first cousins that I don't know where they are. And so it's time for us to try to find out who we are. And I think that's the most important thing that the Greek American community has now. And that's why I said what I said to the HEPA convention the other day. Let us learn our roots. It took 250 years and a TV series for Jesse Jackson and Barack Obama to learn that they're African Americans, that they're just not blacks, because they're blacks in other parts of the world. Okay, so they're African Americans, they're Asian Americans, they're Indian Americans from India, okay, all different in skin other than the original ones that came here, and so we're somebody. George Bush is proud to be Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, he says. And so I am Greek American Orthodox. I should be equally as proud as he is, because he has nothing up on me when it comes to that. And so that's, I think, the key thing that we need to as leaders and as people who can do something about it, we ought to leave as our legacy to our children, rather than our accomplishments in politics and our accomplishments in education and all of that stuff. And remember, I went into education, and it's one of the reasons why I'm a Democrat, because the father of the Democratic Party, Thomas Jefferson, was president of the United States, was vice president of the United States, and was Secretary of State of the United States. On his tombstone, he left in his will, you know what it says? The author of the Bill of Rights, the creator of the University of Virginia, and the author of the law for religious freedom. Nothing about being president of the United States, nothing about being vice president or secretary of state, because those accomplishments remain within that context. But the university that he created, the Bill of Rights that he wrote in the Bill of Rights in the United States, are shrines that would last forever and have affected the lives of millions of people in continuity. And the Bill of the Right to religious freedom are key basic elements in humanity: education and the right to religious freedom, and the basic Bill of Rights of a human being about equality. So that's why I'm a Democrat, and that's why I got involved in education, as I did when I was in the House of Representatives in New Hampshire. I was adamant about kids getting relevant education and the state supporting educational programs. When I proposed an educational program, somebody said it's too expensive. I said, if you think education is expensive, you should try ignorance. I think things are getting back on track. I think the thinking is correct in trying to put the basis for an economic revitalization of the United States and then revitalization of the world, because the people are not going to put up anymore with politicians who do not care about the masses. So they have to find a mechanism by which the world leaders, otherwise we're going to end up with this civil war, religious civil wars that are right now in existence. And it's all because they think that religion is going to give them food at their table. That's what the preachers of hate are teaching them. And so when you have the world having a fanatical religious upheaval that's happening right now, the political leaders of the United States, who is the #1 political institution in the world, I believe, need to get all the other leaders to care about the human beings and the masses. Otherwise, we're going to have problems here in the United States and elsewhere. I think the same thing that I said to the political leaders in Greece. They need to put the foundations of a system that all are citizens, not just residents, not people that live where they get benefits only, but they give benefits back to others. There has to be a community. There has to be a country. There has to be citizenry. And citizens are those who participate in the welfare of everybody else. And that's what I did when I got involved in politics. That's what I wanted to do the common good. And I think that's part of the Athenian democracy, and that's what our ancestors said. You're not an idiot. Is not a stupid person. An idiot is an idiotis, somebody who only is worried about themselves. And I'm sorry to tell you that our compatriots for the last 40 years have been practicing idiocy, okay? Just taking care of themselves, and that's it. And I think if we get back to the basics, to the basic elements of good democracy and participation and concern about each other, I think the world is going to be much better. Certainly Genetera is going to be much better, the country that we all came from, and the United States, who's supposed to be the leader in the world in showing goodness, is going to be much better. Hillary, I supported in 2008, and she's a good friend of mine. Last year I started the first draft movement for Hillary in the state of New Hampshire. And I believe that Hillary is ready, is much more ready and much more prepared than Bill Clinton was in 1991 when he came to see me when I was chairman of the Democratic Party in New Hampshire. So we have a draft movement for Hillary in 2016. I personally believe that she's going to run and she's going to be the president of the United States. We need to have, in my opinion, a woman president in the United States. I think we ought to have, the 4 of the top offices in the state of New Hampshire right now are women. The Speaker of the House is a woman, the governor is a woman, 2 U.S. senators are women, and 2 Congress out of the 2 are all women. And I think the state is functioning well. We're one of the best run states in the country, so maybe what we ought to do is start in 2016, all men stay home and let the women run the country and the state, and I think we're going to be better off. I'm all in favor of that, and certainly I think Hillary should be the president of the United States. It happens in the history of mankind that times in each country produce political leaders. We had here, as I mentioned before, a great group of Greek Americans who were in politics. When I was involved in politics, we had Mike Dukakis, Paul Tsongas, Paul Sarbanes, giants in American politics, and others. We had mayors. We had the mayor of San Francisco. We had Mavroulis. We had Congressman Gas Yatron. We had Olympia Snow, both sides of the aisle. And it's not happening now. What happened in Greece, I think, is what happened in Israel when Sodom and Gomorrah occurred. Manna fell. Everybody got involved in collecting manna and spending it and using it and utilizing it, and everybody went wild. So if you read the history of how Sodom and Gomorrah came, okay, Sodom and Gomorrah really produced what? The 10 Commandments. The Jews did not need 10 Commandments before manna fell. They needed 10 Commandments after manna fell. Why? It should have been the other way around. Greece needs laws, regulations, new beginning, new stuff, because for the last 35 years, either they borrowed or spent their way to oblivion. And so now, order has to be restored. And anytime, you got to remember, I said this to a group of politicians the other day in Greece. When they did the first heart transplant, the heart was okay. The problem was the rest of the body was dead. And the heart wasn't getting blood, wasn't getting oxygen, wasn't getting any of the other parts to function. And therefore, they had to fix the other parts and then put the heart in, because the heart had the problem. You put a new heart in to an empty body. And so if they need to fix several of the elements in Greece for that economy to function and for politics to rejuvenate themselves to the point where people are going to be willing to participate in the making of good government. You need to have those elements in place in order to function. If you don't have those, and if you don't have the citizens who are willing to participate in it, then what you're going to end up is you're going to end up having a problem. A few years back, I noticed that the cathedral in the Soviet Union was functioning, and a tear came down my eyes. I said, Hagia Sophia has been under occupation for over 500 years. The cathedral in Moscow was under occupation for 70 years. A museum to communism. This is a museum to the barbaric actions of the Ottoman Turks. Hagia Sophia is a church. It's the symbol of the Orthodox Christian faith. So we started a movement here in America called the International Congregation of Hagia Sophia. Recently, the Congress of the United States passed a resolution telling Turkey, give back all the stolen Christian churches to their rightful owners. Who is the rightful owner of Hagia Sophia? Every Orthodox Christian of the world. Hagia Sophia is the symbol of the Orthodox Christian faith. It's not a museum for the Turks or for the tourists to go in. It's not a place where cats can chase cats inside the church, as a cat showed up when Barack Obama, President Obama, visited with Erdogan. A cat ran into the president, and the president, and I have a photo and I sent it to him. And I asked him whether or not that was part of the welcoming committee. Hagia Sophia is the church that has been violated by the political leaders of Turkey. Soon, the European Union will have its Committee on Human Rights, the new one that got elected. We will go with our lawyers to the committee to tell them that we're going to take the issue to the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg, ask for their support, because we are now also a European movement, and give the Orthodox Church its symbol back and free our religion from Ottoman Turkish occupation. 570 years is enough, and we will win. You can be sure of that. Just like Loizidou won, just like Phokas won, and just like the 119 missing Cypriots won $100 million euros from the Court of Human Rights for the atrocities that the Turks committed in Cyprus. So there is a process. I'm hoping now that Erdogan has been elected, that we can negotiate with him the peaceful return of Hagia Sophia to its rightful owners, the congregation of Hagia Sophia, and then the church can start its functions as the Orthodox pillar. It's a shame in 2014 to have the Wall of Tears for the Jews free. to have Mecca, the center of the Islam, free, to have St. Peter at the Vatican free, and to have Hagia Sophia, the center of the Orthodox Christian faith, under the tourist attractions of Turkey. It's a shame. I want to congratulate Jan Andaril and the effort to rejuvenate Greekness and Greek television. I think Greek television can play a major role in our community. And if it does anything else, is to get us to talk to each other, get us to see each other, get us to challenge each other, get us to know who we are. I said to the Ahepans, and I said that this morning, let's find our roots. Let's give our children and our grandchildren a task of check to see how they came. One of my happiest moments is when my sister's in-laws from the other side, Irish Americans, she took her grandchildren, half Greek, half Irish, brought them down to Ellis Island to find out about their great-grandmother who came here, my grandmother. They went and they wrote a report what they saw in Ellis Island, when she came, where she came from. They found everything. Google now has everything, all of the information. Let us put them into the Google instead of chasing Mickey Mouse and trying to figure out how Mickey Mouse came about, to find out how he came or she came about and from where, and then invite them over to the Hellenic American Union so we can take them to the village of their ancestors. It was a great thing for me to see my brother Stan, a very famous basketball coach in the United States, to bring his grandchildren to show them where he, at the age of 6, to show his grandchild at the age of 6, where he grew up, how he grew up, what he ate, what he didn't have, because his grandchild thinks that he also had a telephone, he had Google, and he had, shoes, Nike, that, were flashing. He had no shoes. They asked me the other day on Greek television, if I played soccer when I grew up. I said, yes, I was a great goalie. Such a great goalie. I said, no soccer ever passed by me. I said, how many years did you play? I said, I don't know, since 5, I played soccer. What else? Nothing else to play. He said, and no soccer passed by? I said, no, we had no soccer. There was no soccer. We played with powder or whatever we could put into wrap it around and started kicking it. There's nothing else to kick around. Or the gallbladder of the pig. And that's true. And that's what we had. So it's nice for us to find out who we are, and I think that should be the legacy that we leave as people who can influence things and get things done. I think we can be proud of the accomplishments. I want to say, in closing, to those that came like I did, or to those that are the children of those who came like I did, that we can be proud in total of our community. We're first in education. We're done pretty well economically. And we can do even better, and we will do better. If you look at every field in this country is filled with Greek Americans, from comedians to politicians. We had Mike Dukakis, who came a meter away from being president of the United States. And so we've accomplished a lot for people who came here with 0. We added numbers in front of zeros. Because we had zeros, we added numbers, and that's the accomplishment. So we can be proud of our community. We can be proud of who we are. We have contributed to this country. And if you look at the crime that we created versus the good that we created, you will see that you got 99% good and 1% negative. And so we should be proud of who we are and our accomplishments And I'm proud of what I've done and what my family has done, and everybody else that I'd be proud. And I'm proud of everybody else for what they've accomplished.